Okie dokie, I believe we are all the way live. Hello and welcome to my graveyard. I am your host of the evening, the Cemetery Man from Salem, Mass. Always taking names of kicking candy ass, live and in living color here with you only on Grande's Graveyard. Yes, and tonight I welcome a first time, long time type of situation. I've been wanting to have this guy on the show for too goddamn long. And tonight, we're going to be talking about, in my opinion, the biggest movie star of all time. I'm talking about the one, the only Godzilla, and I am welcomed by my dear friend Andrew Paolillo. Andrew, what's going on, brother?
Nothing much. I really appreciate you having me on. As you know, I'm a big fan of the show and, big fan of the Big G. So very excited to get into it. And once again, thank you for having me on.
Dude, of course, anytime. Yeah, me and Andrew, we go way back. I've been up and down the road with this man, as Steve Austin would say. I really have, and we've gone to several wrestling shows, we've gone to movies together. Of course, I did have your brother Henry on. We talked Studio Ghibli about a year or so ago. Really, always love to check in with Henry and see how he's doing. Of course, I do have some getting to know you questions for you for the chat to get to know. Of course, we do have a couple people in the house already. Miss C is here. Konnichiwa, Grande and Graveyardian friends. Welcome, Miss C. Personally, more of a King Kong girl, but should be interesting hearing you talk about that big ass lizard, aka Gojira. Yes, we got Cinephile Sanity TV in the house. What's up, everybody? What's up, Sean? Hope all is well with you. We have Mateo here. Ciao, Grande. Help us people on the subway train. Singing a little Blue Oyster Cult there. I'm not going to do a bad Blue Oyster Cult impression. But so happy to have you all in the house. And of course, I hope, you guys, like the topic tonight and talking all things Godzilla. I'm very excited. I do have some getting to know you questions, though, because for every first time Grande's Graveyard guest, we got to break them in. We got to initiate you into the graveyard tonight, my friend. So no pressure, but I got some getting to know you questions. And the first one here is I do know that you have an acting background. In fact, I've actually gone and saw one of your plays when you played the chief in, of course, One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, and you did a fantastic job in that. But how did you get into acting, and who are some of your biggest influences with acting?
Sure. I probably started getting into acting and performance as a whole. When I started listening to music, I was a big Beatles fan growing up. And, I would see, my brother started performing concerts at school. So one day, I asked my fourth grade teacher, hey, you mind if, me and my friends sing a Beatles song in front of the class? And that started becoming like a weekly thing. So my brother was a big influence on me, not only through that, but through high school too. He was in all the musicals and plays, and was fantastic in Anne Frank and Little Shop of Horrors, where he played the voice of the plant. These are things that really just stick in my mind, and he had a huge influence on me as far as performing goes, as well as wrestling, which me and you bond over quite well. I learned quite early that, they were putting on a performance. So, that instead of turning me off, that really made me think that it was more interesting and that these guys were telling a story through their acting. And I think there are multiple things that kind of have influenced me as an actor over the years. And those are just a few, and probably the most important ones.
That's fantastic, and it's crazy how talented everyone of your brothers. I mean, Eric is so musically talented. He has his own band, and then Henry. I just saw Henry in an opera. Of course, Henry was one of the actors that was kind enough to participate in Down by the Bay when we did that. So it was so cool to work with him on that. And I know he's now in The Beauty of the Beast. He's playing Gaston, so that's really cool. I know that you got out of acting a little bit. How come? And is this something that I know that right now you're doing like behind the scenes theater work, as we were talking about? Is it something that you wanted to get back into someday, or is it something that you're fine, being behind the scenes as long as you're a part of it, type of deal?
I've definitely come to terms with being okay with being backstage. A big part of it, of kind of falling out of it was, the stress of learning lines and, remembering your blocking and then, your choreography and your singing. So, that, it becomes a lot. And not that I particularly had issues with it when I was doing it, but it was just something that was always in the back of my mind. And I'm already kind of all over the place up here anyway. So adding to all that is not going to help. But that's not to say that I would not act again. I, see performances all the time that make me enthusiastic to try and do it again. But I've never gotten the true willingness or like the true devote. Like I haven't felt like any devotion to committing to it. But if I were to do a show again, I'd love to do a Rocky Horror Picture Show.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, so that would probably be the only one where I'd be like, I'll at least audition. So there's one.
There's one. Okay, Rocky Horror Picture Show could get you to come out of the the backstage scene and back into the ring, if you will, if we're going with the whole wrestling thing. But right. I would love to see it personally, selfishly. I told you backstage, but I'll tell you live on the air too. I would love to see you as the mini Meatloaf role, selfishly popping in on the motorcycle. I think that would be absolutely fantastic. That would be really, really cool. But of course, also at the same time, I'd want to see you have a bigger role too. So I don't know. Best of both. Maybe someday when this happens, it would be really, really quite cool. We got Slasher Fred checking in. What makes the original Godzilla so great are the special effects. That's what made them great. Yeah, exactly. And it was they are fantastic. And most of the movies we'll be talking about tonight were all practical effects works, which is incredible stuff. Even after all of this time, I mean, you're talking about a franchise that's over 70 years old. And it really, a lot of the effects still age quite well. So that's going to be very fun to discuss. We got Anthony Chobo does pop cultures and openings. Hello, John. Saw Deadpool and Wolverine, and it was awesome. Dude, I'm so stoked that you liked it, Anthony. Hope all's well. Mateo says, are you reviewing the 98 movie? If so, good luck. We will not. That does not make the top 5 Godzilla list. It might make people's top 5 worst. Would that make your top 5 worst, Andrew?
Yeah, probably.
And that's that's not like a small sample size. That's out of like 35 plus movies, almost 40 movies. So yeah, that's if you make the bottom 5, you're not the greatest here. We got Texas in the house. Hey everyone, hola grande, or I guess it's cast tonight. Konnichiwa, Texas. Hope all is well with you, buddy. Now I know, of course, that we've been to some awesome movies together. I did miss when you guys went to go see one of the movies we'll be talking about tonight on the big screen. But I know that you're good friends with good old Sandy. And Sandy's a great guy. Actually, I'm hoping he's going to watch the show or at least the replay. So shout out to Sandy if you're watching this. I know you've been to a ton of movies with him. Do you have any great, best movie theater experiences, stories? Doesn't necessarily have to be with Sandy, but best movie theater experiences in your lifetime. It doesn't have to be Godzilla either.
Yeah. So I'll do one with Sandy. So Sandy introduced me to the Film Forum that's in New York City, which is mostly a repertory theater. They'll show older movies and do a lot of premieres of indie stuff. And I think I was in 8th grade and we went to go see Rosemary's Baby, and that sitting in an intimate theater, it's very small. It's got to be less than 100 seats. And you walk out of that sort of movie, especially with that ending, and you're just talking for a while about what you just witnessed. Definitely had a lasting impression on me. So that's one. My best movie experience in theaters is probably seeing Godzilla 2014 with Bryan Cranston, who's not in it for long. But, that was the first Godzilla movie so Godzilla Final Wars came out when I was 4, so I didn't really know what was going on at all. So when Godzilla 2014 came out, it was like the first Godzilla movie that I got to experience, you know, the trailers, the hype, and just like, oh my God, like Godzilla's like back. Like I can't, and it's not the 98 Godzilla, like, thank God. So,
Yeah.
and yeah, just being in the theater and the new monster and Muto and just the fight scenes and just like when he charges up and uses his nuclear breath the first time, the whole theater just erupted. It was just that is something I will never forget, and that it has to be my favorite movie theater experience.
That sounds magical, man. That's like Rosemary's Baby for one. I agree with you. That movie does have a lasting impact. Is that finale has always just creeped me out. And yeah, no, like the anticipation I couldn't imagine for what Godzilla 2014 was going to be. And I know that's a controversial one. A lot of people, you get a lot of love, a lot of hate. That seems to be one that's really kind of controversial amongst the Godzilla like diehards. But like I can understand finally getting to see the actual King of the Monsters, not Zilla, than the Matthew Broderick movie, which that movie had a lot of hype at that time too. Granted, I was one, I think, when that movie came out. So, you know, it's weird because that movie came out amongst the hype of Jurassic Park and the Lost World and stuff like that. And it just completely fell flat. Whereas the 2014 movie, it was starting the whole, you know, MonsterVerse thing, which we've now had Kong versus Godzilla and Kong Skull Island. And, you know, they're trying to kind of grow that. So I can only imagine the you know, cinematic experience of that. That must have been really, really special for sure. Especially being a Godzilla fan that you are. We have Raven's Prey Photo checking in. Hello all. What's going on, Ed? Hope all is well with you. I don't know if you know this, but the late 70s, there was a Godzilla cartoon series and it had a catchy theme. I've seen the 98 cartoon series, but I've never seen the 70s one. Are you familiar with it, Andrew?
Up from the depths, 30 stories high, breathing fire, his head's in the sky, Godzilla. It's
well, now that gives me something I need to watch.
Oh yeah,
that's amazing, dude. That is absolutely amazing.
Yeah, it's catchy for sure.
Godzilla has his father's eyes. Absolutely. You got it. You know, Zilla has his father's eyes. Absolutely. So last getting to know you question before we get into this. Now, I know you just talked about a movie theater experience where you finally got to witness Godzilla, but how did you become a Godzilla fan? Was it, you know, I don't actually know the story, so I'm very curious to hear. How did you break into be a Godzilla guy?
So believe it or not, it was Sandy who introduced it to me when I was younger. I don't know if this story is true or if it's just made up in my head and I believe it to be true, but I would like to think it's true that he showed me Godzilla King of the Monsters in actually Jonathan's basement when I was like 5. Wow. And that, you know, seeing it on like a big screen like that was absolutely captivating, and I needed more, I guess, because when I grew up, and this brings me into my next point, we had so many Godzilla VHSs. They were almost all from the Showa era. I remember watching a lot of Godzilla versus Megalon, a lot of what are some of the other ones we had? We had Ghidorah the Three-Headed Monster, and of course King of the Monsters, which is funny. Like I grew up knowing Godzilla King of the Monsters, and it took me a while to be like, oh, the Japanese version, the real version is almost completely different.
Yeah.
And yeah, we'll be getting into that one for sure.
We will. Absolutely. Yeah. We don't know no Raymond Burr, but Steve Martin, or, you know, the weird, like, editing that guy in there is so odd. But yeah, no, the Gojira, the original 1954 version, that is the version for sure. And, you know, spoiler, that did make the top 5, but where will it be? Where will it be? Tune in to find out only. But yeah, no, that's really cool. That's nice. And I hope that story is true too. It's just like, right. That's maybe how you dreamed it up to be, but I don't know. That's really cool too, man. But yeah, Godzilla guy. I mean, I think there's no other guest to have on here tonight. So thank you so much. And without further ado, we're going to dive in to the top 5 Godzilla movies of all time, according to this guy, Andrew Paolillo. So starting off your list here, I guess I'll introduce this and do a brief plot synopsis of it. This is from the year 1968, and I believe at the time, now there's quite a few instances of this happening with the Godzilla series. This was supposed to be the last. This was supposed to be the final chapter of Godzilla, but as we've all kind of come to know, there's never a last Godzilla movie. There's just, or maybe we'll take a little bit of a break. But this is from 1968. This is Destroy All Monsters. I got the poster up here and a brief plot synopsis. In the year 1999, a race of she-aliens, the Keloks, brainwash Earth's monsters into attacking its major cities, prompting a team of astronauts to stop the invaders while the monsters battle King Ghidorah. Yes, Destroy All Monsters. Now, I got to thank you. I had never seen this movie until we did this show here tonight, and I was like super... sorry about that. I was like super happy with it because I found it to be like almost like a movie that builds up to a whole Royal Rumble at the end of monsters. And I kind of liked the whole idea of Monster Island and these monsters being held captive on the island. And it's like the opening 10 minutes, they just kind of show each of the monsters in their habitat. We have Godzilla, of course, Godzilla's son, who does get into the action, and I found that pretty funny. We have the kind of Mothra, but it's the larva Mothra. We have tons of these monsters on Monster Island, and we're watching them kind of through this surveillance. And then, of course, this crazy like puff of yellow pollen, I guess, infects all of them, and then they kind of just scatter throughout the world. Godzilla goes to New York City, which I was like, all right, cool. You want to see Godzilla in New York? Kind of. This is it. It's 1968 here. I believe Anguirus goes to, if it's Paris, I think, or France. I'm not sure. Just kind of fun. And it's all the monsters get scattered across the world and start causing havoc. I thought this was a really fun movie, man. What did you think of this one?
Yeah, no, I mean, this is one of the movies I've seen countless times. I think it has a ton of replay value in just the amount of chaos and monsters that appear in this one. Believe it or not, there were supposed to be even more monsters involved in this one, including they were supposed to involve King Kong, but they had lost the rights to King Kong. And the 2 monsters from the War of Gargantuas were supposed to also be involved in this movie. So there would have been like a total of, 14 or 15 monsters in this movie. So, I mean, I don't think you can even fit that many on the screen. So yeah. I think they made the right choice there. I do like the part of them, it's like world domination. They're going to send the monsters to all the big cities around the world. And the funny part of Mothra,
yeah, that made me die laughing, man. I didn't see that coming, man.
Mothra attacking Beijing and decides to ram straight into a train. Which, if for those who haven't seen it, at least look up that scene because it's worth checking out.
And yeah, Mothra does not budge. Like you see his train coming, and Mothra's just inching its way up. It stops on the train tracks. It's chilling, and then this train just hits it, and Mothra does not budge. This train just implodes. I literally got off my couch and started laughing. Like I just was like, oh my god! Like I thought Mothra would sell a little bit. No, boom! Just the whole train just implodes upon itself. Like oh my god! Like I thought that was absolutely. I was like, it got me so into the movie. That happens like maybe 20 minutes in, and that immediately I was like, all right, I love this. Like I am so like that. You hooked me in right here, and it was cool to see all these different monsters. It was a nice idea, I guess, as a love letter to all the movies that have come before this, right? Because of course it started with Gojira in 1954, and then of course Raids Again was always a movie that kind of was lesser. And they didn't believe Toho, the studio, they didn't believe that Godzilla was the next big, movie monster, which is incredible to say 70 years later, right. We're still talking about Godzilla, but they didn't believe in it until King Kong versus Godzilla sold the most tickets, I believe, in Japanese cinema history in 1962. And that just became, oh my God, they were like, we really found something here with Godzilla. And of course, all of the opponents that it had faced from 62 on to this point, 1968, all kind of make an appearance here, and a big like love letter and thank you to the movies that have come before this. And that's what I kind of liked about this movie. This was a love letter to the I guess the golden era, the OG era, if you will, of Godzilla movies in the 1950s and 60s respectively. And I thought the effects here were significantly better than they were even a decade prior. Like if you watch this and after like watching King Kong versus Godzilla, where the effects are kind of weak, I thought the effects were tremendous in this movie, man. Like some of the scenes where I didn't know the name of the monster, it was like kind of like snake-like that was wrapping itself around the train. What monster is that?
That's Manda.
Manda. Okay, I wasn't familiar with that one.
Yeah, he's from another Toho movie. Which is escaping my mind at the moment, but yeah, he's like a dragon serpent monster.
Gotcha.
And believe it or not, so you saw that scene where Godzilla is destroying the city, and Manda's kind of wrapping himself around the bridge, kind of thing. There's a deleted scene where Godzilla and Manda were supposed to. Well, you can see it online where they're supposed to fight, but they got rid of it because it kind of looks like they're meandering into each other instead of it being like an actual fight. And I mean, they're under control from the key lock, so it's like it wouldn't really make sense to have them fight each other when they're all trying to just take over everything. But I don't know, it would have been cool to see it.
It would have, absolutely. I think it was cool though to give a little bit of each monster. Like I've always been a big Rodan guy, and Rodan, of course, had got its own movie, and Mothra had got its own movie in '62, and like a lot of these monsters had gotten their shot to kind of capitalize on the success. Because like I always say, Hollywood, or in this case, Toho was a big monkey see, monkey do. Monkey see Godzilla make a lot of money, monkey do Mothra. Monkey see, Godzilla make a lot of money, monkey do Rodan. And we again, it's funny, in trying to create their own monster movie franchises, they ended up creating perfect opponents for Godzilla. And like here is the ultimate crescendo of that, where we do get a lot of the people drama in this, and like that's definitely why I could see this being at number 5 as opposed to some of the other movies, even though like the number, certain movies on this list I won't spoil, but they do have the people drama that I think is done great. Here, it's kind of a lot of dialogue with, it's like these astronauts and they're trying to battle with these key locks and they don't know what to do. Kind of a lot of moral panic, I guess. And this one, though, when I just personally really love the action stuff. I just thought the action stuff really worked here. And of course, it all kind of crescendos with this big, like, monster movie gang up, I guess, on King Ghidorah, where all the monsters just decide to destroy, I guess, King Ghidorah in the third act. And it is just as great as it sounds. Like, I thought the ending of this movie was absolutely the highlight. But what did you think of that ending and how they kind of built to that and crescendoed this whole thing?
Yeah, no, absolutely. To put it at number 5, I have to speak to it, the plot, at least a little bit. It's definitely not the most. I could see why it wouldn't be everyone's favorite. Let's put it that way, but I think it's the plot of the movie is very simple, and in a movie like this, I feel like it works really well. And bad people trying to take over the Earth. The Earthlings are like, we need to stop them, and they don't even have their monsters to like help them out. So I actually love the moment of them breaking their way into their lair, or a secret part of, I think they go into a mountain, and they use a laser and take down the mind control device. And just the buildup of that and the music, like the strings are going and there's fire, there's flames everywhere. It's like there's so much intensity. And then they finally get it, and we find out that they have control of the monsters again. And every monster gets an introduction at Mount Fuji like it's a wrestling match, and I love it. There's just so much to love about that final scene. It's like, yeah, like Ghidorah didn't really stand a chance against all of them, but I don't think that's the point. You know, it's like all these monsters were all taking over the earth, and now the humans have control again. So it's like, here we go. We're going to take them down, and we're going to leave them down. And usually Ghidorah flies away. Not this time. Not this time.
No, that when Godzilla, because they got him down, they're stomping him, and then even Godzilla's son gets some offense, which I popped for. Was he puffs like a smoke ring, obviously, because he can't do the atomic breath yet, and it kind of goes over one of King Ghidorah's 3 heads and strangles him to death. I was like, what the hell? And what? How did that happen? Like, you can't blow an atomic, blast, but you could just strangle somebody to death. Like, okay, like I was like, what the heck? Like, I did not see that coming at all. That was fantastic. It was nice to see, because like King Ghidorah is the ultimate heel. Like the King Ghidorah could never fucking be a babyface, and to see all of the monsters after turning back babyface and just kind of ganging up on him, I thought was such a fun moment. To me, it felt like, here's our big celebration. We're going to take the biggest bad guy that we've had over these, 10 plus years of movies, and we're going to beat his ass as we kind of say so long. And this was really supposed to be the swan song, of course, which is a common theme when it comes to Godzilla movies. And of course, I don't think it was the following year. It was 1969 where we get Godzilla's Revenge, aka All Monsters Attack, which I do believe to be the worst Godzilla movie. I don't know if it's your worst, but for me, following this, man, that movie, it looks even weaker now upon retrospect for me. But I had a blast with this. I thought this was a lot of fun. I thought the action was great. I did think the astronaut stuff, like a lot of it was interesting. It got a little tedious at times, but definitely not to impact the entire, the fun of this movie. To me, this is one of the more fun Godzilla movies, to just kind of get some popcorn, get some friends, and watch all the monsters. It's really like Godzilla's greatest hits almost. Like we have all the monsters, at least that we could, legally do. Of course, I know the Kong after King Kong escapes, they didn't own the rights, and I think that was 1966, so they lost the rights to using King Kong. But that would have been even crazier if Kong had showed up here. That would have been very interesting. Slasher Fred says, I think Destroy All Monsters was also called Godzilla versus Monster Zero. Is that right, or is that? I thought that was the one where they go to space.
Yeah, that's Invasion of the Astro Monster, and yeah, that's right. That's Godzilla and Rodan. Fight.
Yeah, and they fight. That's like the only one on the moon. They fight the freaking. That's one of the best. And Godzilla does the big dance. That's, oh, dude, that is classic. We got James Van Dusset in the house. Good evening, everyone. Perfect show for Jimmy. He loves Godzilla. I do love Godzilla films, says James. So awesome. Mateo says, is it true that Godzilla means gorilla whale in Japanese? That is true. That actually is a fact. And it's funny because Gojira is what obviously the original movie was called, and then in '56 when it's re-released here, it's Godzilla, the King of the Monsters, and that just kind of sold like hotcakes and stuff like that. But yeah, no, I mean it's pretty wild that's what it actually translates to, because he's nothing like a gorilla or a whale. He's more of a dinosaur, alligator, stegosaurus type of hybrid thing. We got Ghostface Brett in the house. What's up, everybody? What's going on? Ghostface Brett. We got monster ganging. Yeah, hell yeah. There's a monster ganging movie. Monster gang bang. Yeah, it kind of is. Kind of, sort of. Let's see. I got to see Godzilla in Outer Space now. Oh my God, you will never run out of Godzilla movies to watch. I think that the Japanese superhero series Super Sentai, which later becomes Power Rangers in the U.S., was inspired by the giant Japan monsters. Totally, yeah. There's definitely that mark on there. But yeah, do you want to go ahead and introduce the number 4 movie and do your brief plot synopsis for this one? Because I can get the screen share up here.
Sure. All right.
Let me just go here and okay, go for it, buddy.
All righty. So let me just make sure I got this. So coming in at number 4 on the top 5 Godzilla films for me is Mothra vs. Godzilla from 1964. And the brief plot synopsis is, when the opportunistic tycoons refuse to return Mothra's egg to Infant Island, its people must decide if they are willing to answer Japan's own pleas for help when Godzilla arises near Nagoya.
Hell yeah. I mean, I'm happy you picked this one because I don't know why I'd never thought you'd have this on your top 5. but this would also be on my top 5. And like, to me, of the classic era, like after the original, this is my favorite one. I really love this movie. And to me, a lot of that has to do with the human stuff. Like I was saying before, how in Destroy All Monsters is like, with the human stuff. This one, I love it. I think the psychology here is off the charts. Of course, Mothra's egg, and we had seen Mothra in 1962 with that movie, of course, and they were aiming for a more family friendly type of monster movie, which I never quite got. Like, I never got the psychology of Toho there, but whatever, it sold tickets. And I know they were trying to appeal to women. That was the big thing with Mothra. Yes. They wanted the female ticket. That was another big thing. But Mothra's egg kind of washes up upon the shore, and of course, greed sets in. And I was like, that is so how it would be in real life. This guy, I sold the egg for $1,000,000 yen. And the idea is we're going to take Mothra's egg and we're going to build an amusement park around it. All these rides and this, we'll pay people, have these people pay to see the attraction. And, we'll make a big dollar out of this. We'll turn it into Disney type of deal. And of course, to me, the most memorable thing about this movie, it's not Godzilla and it's not Mothra. It's the two little twins who were these Japanese, like kind of Beatle-esque singers. They had this kind of very bubblegummy music that they would sing. And they ended up showing up on the Ed Sullivan Show. That's how popular they were. And they come down and say, listen, you have to return Mothra's egg, or Mothra will come here and strike you all down with a vengeance. And of course, thus sets the plot of the movie forward as Godzilla kind of awakes through the sand, and we kind of build to our finale here, amongst all this other kind of greed and themes of that. I thought this was a brilliant movie, and going back and rewatching this week was a treat. I had not seen it in so long, and even, 60 years later, I still think this is a masterpiece and one of the top 5 best Godzilla movies. But tell me about your thoughts on this one, man. What makes this one of the best Godzilla movies for you?
I couldn't agree with more with what you were saying. So, I mean, there's a lot. This movie means a lot to me. I mean, this is one of the ones, again, that I had a lot of the Showa era films growing up, and I watched this one a ton. I think it starts great with the credits rolling, and we get, I think it's a combination of Godzilla and Mothra themes as the egg is washing away and
the monsoon to shore,
right? Yeah, and it's a really great setup, and they do a really great job making the antagonist. Like, I just hate the two rich guys trying to make money. Like, I just they're fighting, and then they see that scene so good. They're fighting over the money and like who's going to take more or something like that. And then they're physically fighting, and then they look out the window, and there's Godzilla marching towards them. And they're so caught up in greed that they just continue fighting. And, one tries to escape with money and, to his own demise, and that's just one of the parts of the human side of things that is really fantastic. Also, the stuff involving when they go to Infant Island, I understand that it might be a little controversial that the actors are painted in red.
Yes.
However, if we get past that, there's a really beautiful scene that happens while they're there where, they're asking them, like, they're pleading, like, please, like, we need Mothra to fight for the human race, basically. And they're like, no, like, you created Godzilla, humanity, not them themselves, but, you guys created Godzilla, and now it's time for you to, face the consequences. And then, they go out, they hear the fairies singing just a beautiful song that I have to shout out Akira Ifukube, the guy who writes the music.
Oh, dude, yeah, great talent. Rest in peace.
He is a legend, and he actually wrote that song that they're singing in that meadow kind of garden area for them. And it's that scene when they're singing and then they do like one last plea, like there's good people out there that are worth saving. Um, I'm not gonna lie, but has before brought a tear to my eye, and then they finally, or rather, Mothra takes it upon herself to say, "I will help you," and yeah, I guess that's a good segue into the monsters are just such good foils of each other. Just Godzilla's entrance is so badass, and like he just looks so mean and menacing in this one, and he really is just like on a war path. Like the whole movie, he's just anything in his way, he's just demolishing. And Mothra really is just this beautiful creature, fighting for the good of humanity. And I don't know, you couldn't ask for a better monster fight between both, adult butterfly Mothra and against Godzilla, and both the twin larva against Godzilla on that island towards the end of the movie, which I love the idea of the twin larva. Apparently that wasn't the original idea. I'm glad that they went with that because I just love that. It's kind of psyching them out because I don't know. The tag teaming that they do with the silk web is like one of those images from when I was a child that really sticks in my mind. And yeah, just this film has so much to appreciate about it, especially after watching almost all the Godzilla films in the franchise. You go and rewatch it and it sticks out as easily one of the better movies of the entire franchise.
I completely agree. Yeah, and the effects in this one too were tremendous. Like I liked some of the shots of when the twin little girls are on the tree and they're talking to them and they don't cut the shot. I mean, it is a little, you can see how they pulled it off, but I liked it. I thought that was cool. And when you do see Mothra in the distance kind of flapping its wings, I thought that was like, wow. Like to this day, I still think that's a jaw-dropping effect. You're like, wow, this is incredible. And then the fight itself, I agree. I think you said it perfectly. They're such a great foil to one another. You have the big, mean, hulking brute against this like tinier, I guess, compared to Godzilla, giant to us, but like butterfly creature that, and if for somehow it works, it's a great fight. I always thought as a kid, I was like, I mean, Godzilla's gonna have no problem taking care of Mothra, and I couldn't have been more wrong. I mean, it does the whole pollen gimmick to Godzilla's eyes to blind it, and it does the flapping of the wings to kind of blow him back, and I thought that was also smart, like how they had Mothra's offense affect Godzilla. I thought it was great, and Godzilla sells it like crazy. And then, of course, Mothra, that dramatic moment where Mothra has the fight won, and they're like, "Why doesn't he finish him off?" And she's like, "It's done. It's evolved. It's it has to die." And the two larvae come out and pick up, right where Mothra had left off. And I thought that was great. I thought that was a nice, like literal passing of the torch as we see the culmination of this egg. I thought that was great. And I don't know, I thought this one had, you're right, so many good themes with like, these awful evil people and their greed and how, they fucking, all their fighting around each other, ultimately leads to their demise, because they fail to realize there are two giant, monsters out there, and I thought that was really smart. And I liked the human leads in this. I thought they were really quite likable. Like I said, I always do like the two little fairies. I thought they go synonymously with Mothra. Like that's something that everyone remembers, whether you like this movie or not, everyone remembers them. So, I mean, that's definitely has the long lasting image and staying of memorability. I think this, 60 years later, I still think this is a great movie, and it's like a treat to have gone back and rewatched. So yeah, I highly recommend. You can watch this one, I think, with the English dub. I think Criterion put all of these on YouTube for free with ads. It's with the English dubbing, so it is what it is. But I personally, I like the subtitles, watching the Japanese version with the subtitles. To me, that's the only way to really watch a movie like this. And Criterion, I think you have that set, right? That Criterion. Oh, he's got it. Here we go. Show it off. Oh, that's it. Show that bad boy off. That is a really cool set.
Yeah.
Oh man.
So yeah, I'll try my best because the art in this is incredible. Yeah. Yeah.
Here, I'll make myself smaller so they can.
So that's Godzilla raids again. This is all the Showa era films. That's King Kong. That's Ghidorah, three-headed monster. I'll do this a little quicker. Here's Invasion of the Astro Monster, which is also Godzilla versus Monster Zero, as we mentioned earlier. Here's Ebirah, Horror of the Deep, also Godzilla versus the Sea Monster. Son of Godzilla, which is one of my guilty pleasures. Destroy All Monsters, Godzilla's Revenge, or All Monsters Attack, which is, full of stock footage.
Yeah.
Godzilla versus the Smog Monster or Hedorah.
That's my guilty pleasure.
Godzilla versus Gigan. Godzilla versus Megalon. And Godzilla versus Mechagodzilla. I love.
Yeah,
this.
That's awesome.
Oh, man. And then the final one. Oops.
Terror, right? Terror Mechagodzilla.
Yes, it is Terror Mechagodzilla. Amazing art.
Yeah.
Showa era is undeniably my favorite era of these films. But yes, they do have them on YouTube, and I believe if you have Max as well, all the Showa era films are on there as well.
Which is awesome. It's a good way. Like if you're not a subtitle person for whatever reason, that's probably the best way to go about them. You can watch them for free on YouTube, or you can watch them if you have Max in perfect high def. And that Blu-ray set is awesome. That's one of the biggest regrets that I never got that. And I will one day, because it's probably the price at this point is probably plummeted now that they're free on YouTube and stuff. But yeah, if you're a big Godzilla fan, I think that set is a must own. And it's just so cool. The Criterion went all out with all these, it's crazy to me to think that, Godzilla's Revenge has a Criterion Blu-ray, but yeah, because it's a part of that era, hell yeah, it's getting a blue. So I thought that was cool, man. But yeah, no, for this era, I would say other than the original, this is my favorite of that era. I love the Showa era too. So I'm right there with you. So yeah, Mothra versus Godzilla comes in at number 4. We got a couple of comments here. Let's see. Have we ever seen the animated short Bambi versus Godzilla? I have not. You have? What did you think?
Yeah, I mean, I that's one of the things. That's one of my first exposures to Godzilla as well, actually. Yeah, it's hilarious. It's only 10 seconds, and Bambi's just eating some grass. And Godzilla's foot comes down and smashes Bambi, and that's it. Definitely recommend checking it out, because actually, I think the animation's kind of cool, and it's only 10 seconds. So,
well, yeah, we couldn't imagine that being a very long fight. Just a friendly FYI, I checked out Godzilla versus Space Godzilla. It's on Amazon Prime for anyone who is interested in watching it. Okay, very cool. Thank you, Miss C, for letting us know. My favorite Godzilla film is Godzilla versus Mechagodzilla. That's an awesome pick. That's a classic. I'm weird, though. I don't know about you. I always, of the Showa era, I like Terror of Mechagodzilla better for some reason. I don't know if that's I think it's an unpopular pick, but I don't know. Of course, those two fought a lot. They did Godzilla versus Mechagodzilla 2 in 93. And then they did, I think, another one. So I think there's 4 Godzilla versus Mechagodzilla movies. And then, of course, that's if you also don't count the King Kong versus Godzilla movie in America, where at the end they team up to fight, Mechagodzilla. So you can definitely get your fair share of Mechagodzilla. That's 5 movies right there off the top of my head. I don't know if you've ever seen it, but there was a Beastie Boys music video called Intergalactic that feels like it was an homage. I've not seen that. I don't know. I don't listen to too much Beastie Boys, if I'm being honest. Unsubscribed from Max recently, but I left. But at the time I left, they still had Godzilla movies and Godzilla Con. Okay, cool. So yeah, they're still up on their on all their glory here. But that is going to bring us to our number 3 movie. And I watched this just a couple nights ago for show. And this is another movie I hadn't seen in so long. And I'm happy that you picked this one too, because this would probably be in my top 5 too. I adore this movie. And this is from the year 1995. This is Godzilla versus Destroyer. Yes, Godzilla versus Destroyer here. Brief plot synopsis for you guys. The aftermath of the Oxygen Destroyer brings forth Destroyer, a beast intent on killing Godzilla, who is on a verge of a nuclear meltdown. Yes, Godzilla versus Destroyer. I think this was a beautiful movie. And another case like Destroy All Monsters, like Terror of Mechagodzilla, like Final Wars after this, was supposed to be the end. And this, of course, I know this was a huge deal when it came out. It made like national public news that even here in the States that they were finally going to kill Godzilla after 41 years of being in existence. And they had all these great things, like they had the Godzilla's funeral, and they had the Godzilla statue in Japan. Just really crazy. It was like saying goodbye to your favorite baseball player, or saying goodbye to this hero. And it's just so funny how over Godzilla was. And man, if it had ended all here, and I know there's one of the movies we're going to talk about very soon came after this, but man, I would have said this is the perfect swan song for your series, because I just think this is a perfect movie from top to bottom. But tell me your thoughts on this one and why it makes the list here at number 3.
So yeah, so believe it or not, I did watch this one when I was much younger, but time goes by, we forget a little bit. So I would like to say my first real viewing of this was when I was first asked to be on the show. And I just, I was blown away right from the beginning. Godzilla is in a form that we've never seen him before. He comes on the screen and he's like orange and glowing, and you're like, what's going on with that? And then he's attacking Hong Kong, and then that's such an awesome way to introduce you to the film too. I think a lot of why I appreciate this movie so much is the build up towards the end, and the way they make Destroyer so powerful. And he is a creation of what killed the original Godzilla.
Yes.
Yeah. So that being said, he's like for what we know, just unstoppable. Love the scenes when we're setting up. They're in smaller forms. They're like almost like scorpion-like, and that scene where the police are going into the building is just super creepy and just really gave me Alien vibes. Yeah. Like just that there's something lurking here, and then you see a little snap of it, and then it comes crashing in, and man, those police officers were toast. And and then the idea of these smaller beings coming together and forming what winds up looking like the devil in kaiju form is a really cool idea. Another part of the film that they definitely get right is Godzilla Jr. The best looking baby Godzilla in the entire franchise, because he actually looks like his parent. And you feel like he is able to stand his own, but not quite. And that's what inevitably brings the adult Godzilla over to Destroyer. And that final fight is really just such a moment in the franchise that I think I really wish I could have been in the theaters for this kind of experience.
Me too.
See, like you were saying, like watching, it's even worse. It's like literally watching your hero die. Like it's like he's melting away. But before that, like the fight between Destroyer and Godzilla, like Destroyer just, for lack of a better word, destroys Godzilla. And rightfully so, because he is a creation of what killed him, or an ancestor of him to begin with. So, however, I love the opposite side of that, of Godzilla's breaking down, and the amount of energy that he is emitting is so vast that Destroyer can't even handle it, and starts, puking and like breaking down. And it's like Godzilla. It's hard to watch, because it's like he's not even trying. It's like his last gasp of air. It's like his last chance to fight.
It's like Ric Flair and Shawn Michaels at WrestleMania 24. It's like you watch this guy that has been champion time and time again and has made so many great memories, and then to that ultimate "I'm sorry, I love you" finale. I mean, and it's very much like that. And I thought it was very interesting and quite ballsy marketing for them to let you know it going in.
Yeah.
Like you
Oh,
didn't,
yeah.
it's not just like, oh, we're going to surprise them. I think they were smart in saying that this is it, and I think that probably helped its ticket sales a lot. And it helped obviously with the, the marketing and the notoriety and everybody on public news stations literally saying goodbye to this monster, of all these years, 40 plus years of all these stories and battles and kaiju era fights. And I thought it was also ballsy to not go with an opponent that we had seen before. Like obviously, if I'm the creative at Toho, if I'm the guy they bring in, I'm probably picking King Ghidorah. Like I'm probably, because that's to me like it's either King Ghidorah or it's Mothra for me. If you're saying Grande picked the last opponent that's going to finally, I probably would have picked one of those two. And I thought it was so smart for them not to go that route and to go with more of a direct sequel to the original film, where, of course, with the hydrogen thing and that whole invention that the scientist creates in, the original Gojira, this is a creature that is a creation of that. And we do get a lot of callbacks and flashbacks. And I believe we follow the grandson of that scientist inventor, and I thought that it was so cool to see his character all conflicted. Like, I heard about Godzilla all my childhood, and this is really the finale. And I think that's almost meta. It's like, yeah, here we are as fans. We heard about Godzilla our whole childhoods, and all these other kids probably too. And like, here we are seeing him on his last day. This is his last battle. And I forgive me for not pronouncing the name correctly, because I was saying it like an inappropriate way. A Fukabe is what? How does you say the guy does the music's name? If Fukube?
Yeah, Akira Ifukube, and this was
Ifukube.
his last film making music.
And my God, the music here is, I think, the best of the entire series. Like that final build when Godzilla is like turning the corner and they lock eyes and they're about to fucking go. That's one of the most inspirational, like Rocky movie moments of a Godzilla movie that I've ever seen, where you're just like, he's literally going into fight Satan himself right now. And it's just so epic how these two go at it. And I did like the whole like glowing Godzilla design, I guess, with the atomic heart, I guess, with the green, like the orange mixed with the green. I thought that was really cool. The effects here may be at an all-time best when it comes to practical. I know there's some CG in here. This was like the early stages of CG, but man, Destroya itself looks fantastic. And I totally agree. I thought the best scene of the movie was when the police kind of go into that station and Destroya, and it's like tinier, like, I guess, multiply form. And then when it becomes the ultimate Destroya, just great. And I thought it was beautiful how they passed the torch. Like, they fight to the death. You have all this blood, this green goo and this orange goo and literal bodies flying and stuff and missiles being shot. And Godzilla passes the last of what he has to his son, who Destroy has killed, I guess, and then, of course, Godzilla's energy brings it back to life as we pass the torch. And they end with this beautiful, like, montage of the series in the credits as we play the classic. Man, if I was in the theater, I probably would have got up and cried and applauded. Like, I'm not even like kidding. Like, what a beautiful swan song. And even though we like Destroy All Monsters, and I think it's an awesome movie, this to me, I don't think you have a better finale. Like, I all due respect to Terror, all due respect to Final Wars, I don't think you could top this as a swan song. To me, this is the perfect last Godzilla movie that obviously wasn't. But I adored to this, man. I just thought this was epic. Like I'm happy you picked this one because I hadn't seen it in a long time either. But did you think, now I know that you said Showa was your favorite era. Did you think the second era, like where would you rank the second era and the third era? Because of the second era, this one stands out obviously the most. But there was a lot of good ones in the second era.
Yeah, I mean, I got this one here, so it's like I
had that too.
Yeah, I mean that Godzilla versus Mechagodzilla 2 is wound up. I rewatched it recently, and it's way better than I remember it. And I don't know, I kind of rank Heisei and Millennium in kind of like the same plane. I'd probably go Heisei a little more, so like the 90s stuff, like the 80s to the 90s stuff, maybe a little higher. But I mean, we're talking GMK and Tokyo SOS and Final Wars. It's tough, but
it is. GMK is probably the craziest like heel Godzilla ever gets, with the like it looks like a deadite with the white eyes. I always thought that was a great to make Godzilla look demonic. Like I was like, wow, this is incredible. I do wonder though, part of me wonders, like, had this just been it, like I really wonder if they would have stuck with that, even though I do know that it seems like everybody in the production crew was like, yeah, we know this is not the last one. Like that was like the running joke. And it wasn't until the Matthew Broderick 98 movie that I think inspired them to make Godzilla 2000 in the States. I believe it was Godzilla 99 in Japan, which I've never liked that one. I never liked Godzilla 2000. I think that's one of the weaker ones. But I do think that triggered them. I think they were like, look what you've done to my boy. And then they fucking were like, you know what? All right, get to the production. But I wonder how long this layoff would have been, had they not done what they did in America. And I wish they sort of hadn't. With that being said, because I just think this was beautiful. I think of the ones you picked, this one and maybe the next one were the most like hit me in the feels the most, I guess, but in a good way. Let's see. I think Godzilla versus Destroyer feels like a direct sequel to the original. Yes, and they did that a lot. There were a lot of Godzilla sequels that just didn't bother to follow the last one. Although I do think this one does keep the continuity with Space Godzilla. I believe so, because of how Godzilla kind of shows up at the beginning in Hong Kong. And that was like one of the few times he destroys Hong Kong. Unless that was a creative choice. I really don't know.
Well, I know that they do carry over because the pilot from the Super X from Godzilla vs. Biollante is in this, and there's a Super X 3, so there is some sort of continuity in there, because the Super X 3 is what ultimately freezes Godzilla. I just wanted to quickly throw in there is an actress from the original Godzilla movie.
Yes.
That is in this film, and I just wanted to mention her name. It's the woman who played Emiko. Yes, Momoko Kochi makes a return after so long, and she's not even in much of this movie, but just to see, to that point of this feeling like a direct sequel, I mean, there it is. Like, she was literally there when she was the first person to ever see Godzilla. So it's just,
and it's crazy because she didn't want, like, from what I read about her, she didn't really want the notoriety of it. Like, she was so like kind of like, people would come and see Godzilla, and she hated being known for it. And then 41 years later, she was like, you know what? It's time to embrace it. And it's cool that somebody that was there at the beginning was there at the sort of end. And they got, of course, like a lot of the, the director had of course worked on quite a few of these. I know that I believe the actor that played Gigan in the 70s, he goes on to play Godzilla in this movie. So talk about that. Like, it's 20 something years later, and he's playing Godzilla in the suit. So that was a really cool kind of full circle for him, and I don't know, I thought to get the guy that did the original music back, and it just was a really, really nice, they did everything right to me. Like, this was a perfect, like, set off into the sun and kind of like really, I thought what got me was the credits, like just showing all the highlights of the series, and like it's just like got you to think like, man, yeah, this is one of the biggest movie stars ever. Like I just love it. I thought a really, really, really great movie for me. Definitely would be in my top 5 as well. So great pick on that one. But I believe that brings us to number 2, Mr. Paolillo. I believe, and it's your turn to introduce here. I'll share the screen for it because this next one, this was the first Godzilla movie I ever saw in a theater, and it's not even that old. So go figure. But man, if you're going to see anyone for the first time in a theater, this was a great one to do because this is arguably my favorite Godzilla movie, just from last year. And if you want to take it from here.
Yeah. So coming in at number 2, we have Godzilla -1 from 2023. The quick plot synopsis: post-war Japan is at its lowest point when a new crisis emerges in the form of a giant monster baptized in the horrific power of the atomic bomb.
Dude, tell me your theater thoughts, because I do remember sending you a voice message after I had seen it, and I said, bro, you got to see this in 4DX, because I saw it in 4DX. It was a tremendous experience for me, the most fun I've had in a movie theater in a long time. But what was your experience like? Because I would assume if the 2014 hype meant the world to you, I couldn't imagine the heights that this movie would have reached.
Right. Yeah. I wrote some answers down earlier for the getting to know you questions, and -1 was on there as a question mark for best theater experiences, because seeing it in 4DX, I mean, some people who are really into film might be like, that's not, they get snobby with it, and it's like, that's not the way to see a movie.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it was super immersive. The way they were able to use the seats and the actual theater and other elements that they're able to throw in to the theater experience was super cool. But I mean, from when I was a kid, it was like, I've never thought, I mean, Shin Godzilla also came out. But this was the one where I was like, I saw the trailer and this feels like, we're going to get into something real here. So, and then you sent me the message that you had a great time and that the movie was fantastic. So I was like, well, I got to take Grande's advice. So we went in 4DX, and man, from the get-go, this movie really straps you in for just destruction. And Godzilla, this is the most destructive and evil Godzilla has ever been in the entire franchise. And that works to their benefit a lot, because we have these characters that, for once in a blue moon for this franchise, we actually care about and want to follow and want to be, have a happy ending. So, but that this movie does such a good job in painting misery at this post-war Japan, and these people go back to their homes and their families are gone, and what are they left to face but Godzilla and the creation of these atomic bombs. And yeah, just there's so much to talk about here between the human drama and the war veteran not really completing his role and kind of having kind of guilt about surviving that Godzilla attack, and everyone losing their families. It's just, and then the Godzilla action scenes.
Oh, dude, amazing.
Amazing. This is, not Toho's first, but one of their first attempts at fully using, digital effects. And it looks incredible. I think the water scenes are the best in the franchise as well. The fighting in the water just looks fantastic. And that's where, I mean, the climax of the movie is so you can't write a better ending to a film. At least a film like this. Yeah, and again, there's so much to this movie that I'm like stumbling over myself. I just love it so much, and I really implore people, if you haven't seen this movie, go try and check it out for sure.
And you can on Netflix. This is a Netflix movie, so there's really no excuse for people that haven't. And Mateo does chime in and says Godzilla -1 kicks asses. I agree. This movie kicks some ass. And yeah, no, I had that same. When we were in the theater for the 4DX, I had never been to a 4DX movie. And I was like, I don't know about this. I know it's like an Indonesian invention and it's sort of catching on in the States. And I was like, yeah, I want to try this. I figured like, instead of IMAX, let's try 4DX for Godzilla. And I'm so glad that we did, because what 4DX does, they do like, they'll shoot water squibs at you. They'll blow air on you. You'll literally, like when they're in the boat, the seat moves like you're on a boat, like it has water physics on the seat. So it's so fun. Like it feels like you're in the movie with them. It's just incredible. I thought it was a lot of fun. Also, you're right. I mean, the once in a blue moon, you do get the human characters you care about. I loved the story. I thought it was so really well tragic and well told. And of course, this is sort of a prequel, because obviously the -1 thing in there. And of course, we open up, it's like a beach of World War II. And we have this kamikaze fighter that refuses to shoot Godzilla there. This is your assignment. And he comes back, and because he's a kamikaze that survived, everybody looks at him like he's a leper, like he's a hermit. He's anything but the martyr. And, he comes back and has that survivor's guilt. And, he has the love of his life in his life. He has the little girl. And I really felt for him. I felt so bad for him. And then, of course, I really liked the chunk of this movie where he meets these other guys and they're pretty much, fishing for mines. And just all the characters that you meet there, the guy with the wacky hair, he was my favorite character in the movie. Like I was like, dude, I want to have a fucking like a chill session with this guy. Like he seemed so funny. Like I loved him. And they're fishing for the mines, and then you get this amazing sequence towards the beginning where Godzilla's kind of coming at them, and it almost like an homage to Jaws, I felt like, where the mine is in Godzilla's mouth and he's shooting at the mine and boom, blows up, and Godzilla can regenerate, like sort of like Wolverine. And I thought that was a really cool touch. And I don't know, I thought that was great. I thought it was a great way to build character, and you're watching this character kind of struggle as he is trying to complete his arc. Right? He ran away from the fight when he signed up to be a kamikaze, to be an opponent that did not fear death, that did not fear war, and thus is fighting his own personal one. And, this movie kind of goes all the way around to leading up to the showdown, not between Godzilla and any other monster, but between our lead character and Godzilla. And I don't know if we've ever seen that before. I thought that was such a great idea. And you're like, how would they ever make that work? A regular human guy versus Godzilla. And they did it somehow. They made it very believable. As this guy through his friends and, they plan all this way that we're going to sink Godzilla. And if that doesn't work, we're going to rise him up. And they have all these plans to take out Godzilla. And if that doesn't work, you're going to kamikaze in his mouth and blow up his head. I just love that. All the planning to get Godzilla. I thought that was really fun. The attack on the city is, man, I think, the best action sequence in the series. Like, yeah. I don't know. Are you in that boat with me?
Oh, absolutely. And, we get the girl protagonist, Noriko, she's on the train, and
that shot of her like looking through the, like, oh shit.
Yeah, but that's what's so scary is like, it's like, oh shit, but also like, well, there's nothing I can do now. And then, we have Godzilla does it in the original movie. He picks up the train and he just kind of tosses it. Maybe it's an homage to that. Maybe it's a coincidence. I don't know. But, she somehow survives that, falls into some water. And then, she's kind of like traumatized by what just happened, kind of walking through the streets where all these people are running past her. And then that's when Kochi comes up and saves her. Well, up until when the army starts attacking Godzilla.
Yeah.
And then Godzilla gets freaking pissed. And then he charges up. And yeah, the atomic breath in this movie is the most devastating. Like it all the other atomic breath in this franchise is incomparable. It's like literally an atomic bomb went off. So that's why seeing it in a theater was super impressive too. Just the bass and just and the shaking of the seat, like you really felt it. And then as that goes off, Noriko pushes Kochi away, and she's swept away by the atomic waste that's, kind of blowing everywhere. And we don't catch up with her till the end of the film, and then we just see the devastation that's left of Japan, and you're just sitting there like, damn, man, that was crazy.
Yeah, and to accomplish more than one thing too, I thought. Like, for one thing, you're accomplishing again, like feeling bad for this guy. Like, oh, he just saved her. Like, he probably wishes it could have just been him that flew away, and instead she saves him. Like, no, like, you still have to finish your war, type of thing. And I thought that was so devastating when you see her fly away. And then also the harking back to the original movie, like the using of the original sound effects from 54, from 70 years ago. We hear the classic, how did Godzilla's original roar? They took this like leather glove and just rubbed it on like a cello bass, and then it made that original. And you hear that. And then I guess they played it in a stadium to give it that echo, and that all those original sound effects are there. And you hear the dun, 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 dun. I was like, wow, like what a cool homage to the original here. I thought that was so nice to throw in the little sound effects in that big scene of all of the new effects of today, but still like throwing in some of the old school, like we remember the past. I liked that too. I thought that was a beautiful, like, happy medium. And then to me, the entire third act, like, you do have certain characters that did not like him and resented him for running away, and they kind of make peace. And then you get the final showdown where, like I said, they try to pressurize Godzilla, then they try to come up and get him to stop, and it's kind of messed him up. And you get the entire scene where he drives the plane into Godzilla's mouth, and it's like time stops and everybody's kind of looking around. And just the immediate, like, when we see him in the sky and everybody cheers, and I cheered in the theater. I was so happy for him. I was like, yes. And you get that line, I believe that the woman says to him, you get the line where she says, "Is your war over?" And he just breaks down and cries, and they hug and embrace. And I just thought that was beautiful. I thought the arc here is the best that I've seen in a Godzilla movie. And I thought that just everything they did was perfect. They really didn't have any. I thought the pacing was good. It wasn't over long. I think, what is this, just over 2 hours? Was it 2 hours? 2 hours and 4 minutes. That's with credit. So probably a 2-hour movie. I thought this was tremendous, man. I really did. Like, this is it's going to be hard to follow this. And I guess they did do a movie in America with Godzilla that tried to follow, but I didn't see that. Did you see the Godzilla Kong too?
Oh, the New Empire, correct? Yeah, I did. I saw it with Ben, and we were kind of talking the whole time, like going back and forth, like, wow, I can't believe this is what's going on with this series now. Not that, the Godzilla series hasn't had its fair share of silliness, but I don't know. I just don't know how it came from that, like where it's coming from, like the Godzilla versus Kong, which I wasn't even a huge fan of either. Just like they go in feels like a completely different direction, but that works for some people.
Yeah, no, hey, absolutely. I don't know though. I this fortunately was the only one I didn't get the chance to rewatch this week. I thought I had downloaded it, and then last night I was like, oh, I didn't, and then I crashed. Like, I was so tired from the work week, so I didn't. This is the only one that I didn't get to rewatch, but I did watch it recently enough. I think December I saw it in the theater, so it was definitely on the mind. And I just thought this was a great movie, so I highly recommend people watch Godzilla -1. I think this is the best Godzilla movie. Like, it's funny because Shin Godzilla was had a lot of praise when it came out. I still think that movie's a little too political for me, and maybe the early stages when Godzilla's like more of an amphibious, that effect didn't work for me. I don't know about you. I was like, I laughed at that. I was like, what the hell? I thought that looked awkward.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like sort of like the Destroya, they like messing with the kind of evolution of, the monster. It didn't really work for me either, although I will say it doesn't land towards the bottom of the Godzilla movies for me. It's probably right in the middle because there's some great action sequences in there, and some of the human drama is good, and there's actually some comedic parts of that movie that I was not expecting. So yeah, I mean, I wasn't a huge fan of that film, but I was glad to see Toho making Godzilla again, and that's really the end of the story. And that's to also say, at the end of this movie, we see Godzilla and his flesh that's been blown to pieces, pulsating, growing, which can only mean one thing. So
he's gonna be back.
Yes.
It's not the last one. Godzilla's minus 0.5 or something. I don't know what they're gonna do. Or maybe they'll just finally remake the original. I don't know, but that would be crazy if they did that. I don't know, because that'd be tough to top. But okay, so we've gone through 5-2. Now I know you said you did have some honorable mentions that you wanted to mention, so feel free, please do. And then also, if you're giving me honorable mentions, you also got to give me a bottom 3 worst.
All right, all right. Let's see, bottom 3 worst. Let's start with that. I mean, Godzilla's Revenge has got to be in there.
That's the bottom for me. I don't think there's a worse Godzilla movie than that.
It's just, a ton of stock footage. Although I will say I do love Gabra and his design. I wish we got more of him, to be honest with you, but I might be in the minority there. But I thought it was a cool design. And yeah, I mean, that movie just hurts from it just being kind of a replay of the recent Godzilla films.
Yeah, it's like an hour long and like half of it is stock footage.
Exactly. It was meant to get the kids in and out of the theater, and I don't even know if it worked that well. But
no.
Let's see. Yeah, I mean, Godzilla 2000 is probably down there. I mean, there's so many of them that it's hard to like pick 3.
It's so hard, I know.
But I'd say that, and then probably Godzilla Raids Again, only because it's kind of just a weak kind of story. It's almost like a retelling of the first one, but it's worse. So but we do get Anguirus out of that, and I do love him. So
yes.
But that's the thing about these movies is like, there's for the normal person a lot of crap, but
we do have Mateo asking you thoughts on the 2014 movie. I know you said you had went to the theater, but you didn't give your thoughts. What are your thoughts on that one, man? It's a controversial one.
Yeah, so I mean, looking back now, I think, elephant in the room, they probably shouldn't have killed off Bryan Cranston so early in the movie. I would have loved to see where that character, even if they killed him in the end, I would have loved to have seen where that character could have gone. But I love the idea of, Monarch, and now we have an agency that's going to, kind of keep track of these monsters. But, as that always happens in the series, they don't always, because they're monsters and they're much bigger than they are. And the Muto are we're a great addition to the lore of all these Godzilla monsters. And I think it's a formidable foe up until, of course, Godzilla gets his hands around its mouth and sprays that nuclear breath right down its throat and kills it immediately. the human stuff in that movie is better than normal. I'll say, the guy in the military is kind of interesting and following him, and he saves that child, and he's ultimately part of the reason, like how Godzilla is able to defeat the Muto. The destroying all the eggs and distracting one of them. I think it's a really solid Godzilla film. Whereas Godzilla -1, I think anyone can watch and appreciate.
Fair enough. I thought it had good visuals. Like visually, the movie looked stunning. And I thought the director did a good job. Gareth Evans, I think his name is. I thought
Gareth
he did a
Edwards.
good. Gareth Edwards. Sorry,
Yeah.
yeah. Gareth Evans is the guy that did the Raid. Sorry, got my Gareths confused. Friggin', I thought it visually looked good. I just thought it was a little bit too cut away with its action sequences. Like they do a lot of here we go cut. Like I was to the point where by the end of it, I'm like, oh, like. They did it one too many times for me, but I don't know. I haven't watched that probably since it came out. So that's when I would definitely need a refresher on. I did prefer the King of the Monsters from 2019 when it comes to the American ones, I guess. I think I like that one a little bit more because, again, you have Mothra, Rodan. Like, you definitely had some of the cast of characters that I was used to as a kid. So I think I preferred that one a little bit more for maybe some nostalgia reasons. Mateo says, with Cranston, I was expecting to see Godzilla on meth. Very disappointing. Yeah, that's probably what a lot of people were. And that was Breaking Bad still on? Was Breaking Bad still going at that point, 2014?
Oh, man.
I really don't know. I never watched Breaking Bad.
It honestly might have been towards the end of the series.
Maybe the reason they killed him off because they had a film. Maybe they could be reasons just like that. Like, I don't know. But yeah, I remember being disappointed too. It's like the first third. I think before Godzilla's even in the movie, he's gone, Bryan Cranston. So that's kind of crazy, like to think about. But I don't know. I didn't hate it either. It's just one of those movies that was like I wanted a little bit more. But honorable mentions. What do you got, man?
Yeah, we'll go through it real quick. I mean, Godzilla. You can't talk about Godzilla without mentioning Godzilla versus King Kong. I mean, that one's just legendary. Even just hearing the name, it's like, oh, I gotta see that. I still think the original is, tops any remake that they've made so far, or like combination of the two monsters. They duke it out and they leave it all out on the line, and that movie is a ton of fun as well. Way less serious and more like let's have fun and let's watch these two duke it out and see. It's like USA versus Japan and let's see what happens kind of thing. Yeah, that one's really fun. Let's see. Godzilla versus Mechagodzilla, and I guess Terra Mechagodzilla kind of falls into that too. I think they're just solid stories, and Ifukube writes some more great music, and it's more sci-fi because we're dealing with people making Mechagodzilla, and they're I believe they're aliens or some sort of something like that. But again, that one is super fun, but things get a little not like super serious, but Godzilla is like a true hero in that movie.
Yeah.
And in both of them. So it's cool to see Godzilla in a different kind of role in that scenario, even though he was in that role a lot. He played that role well in those movies. And then I'm trying to think. I mean, I really enjoyed Godzilla versus Biollante. That's one that I watched for the first time recently because I've always had trouble finding it, like a place to watch it. At least the Japanese version without the dubs. So I'm really glad I took the time to find that. I believe years ago that got voted the best Godzilla movie of all time in Japan. And it's really good. It tells a really great story, but I don't think it has as much replay value or just value in general for me compared to the other movies on this list, but definitely worth checking out. The effects in that movie are really cool too.
They are.
And I think that should just about be it.
Fair enough. I think you have awesome honorable mentions. If I honorable mention for me, but probably would make mine is Smog Monster. I always love, and I actually always, for whatever reason, love Megalon. As bad, I know people hate that one, but I know that's the one that kind of slipped the cracks with copyright in the United States. And of course, my dude, my legendary dude, Jet Jaguar. I don't think to me, the whole fact that that was a kid, like they went with a kid's idea, like they did like a contest, and whatever kid won got to have their monster in the movie, a Jet Jaguar. Like to me, that has always been, and we've never ever, other than that movie, seen Jet Jaguar again. It's so wild to me. Like if I ever got the Grande, you're getting the Jet Jaguars in it. Like I do not give a shit what I have to do, who's like where I have to sign my soul. I don't even care. Like Jet Jaguars in the movie, god damn it. I don't care what anybody says. But yeah, no, you picked some awesome ones. Biollante was the same case too, where it was, I believe, like a fan thing where like they let fans come up with the next opponent, and that was what they came out with. So
that's right.
Really good pick. But man, coming in at the number one slot here tonight, and I don't think there's any other. I mean, granted, maybe -1 is taking it over for me just for recency bias, but you really can't beat this movie that comes in at the number one slot, in my humble opinion. It's the one that started it all 70 some odd years ago. It is the original Gojira. Yes, Gojira, aka in America in 1956. It was called Godzilla, King of the Monsters! Exclamation point. Brief plot synopsis. After a dinosaur-like beast awoken from the undersea hibernation by atom bomb testing ravages Tokyo, a scientist must decide if his similarly dangerous weapon should be used to destroy it. Yes, of course, directed by Isiro Honda, who directed a lot of these. Just a legendary movie, and even looking back now, yeah, and Slasher versus 1954, yes, that's Gojira, and then the American version comes out in 56, King of the Monsters. Looking back now, and I rewatched this on Monday, this is a great film, but man, it's also a depressing one. And I think that's where it lies its strength and what makes it different than pretty much every other Godzilla movie that we could even imagine. Other than 30 other ones, this one still reigns supreme. This one still is the one that's probably the most talked about, and I think there's a good reason for that. And it's just a tremendous film. But tell me about your thoughts on this one.
Yeah, so this is the movie I've definitely seen the most. I mean, that's just, it goes without saying. Yeah, I mean, they made a whole new genre out of this movie. Granted, they took inspiration from Beast from, what is that, 50,000 Fathoms and King Kong. But Tomoyuki Tanaka, you know, I just love the story of him being on a plane, going home, and he looks out the window, and he looks into the ocean, and he wonders, what if a monster emerged? And that, to me, just those words alone create such an image in your brain. And then, you know, you see a movie like Godzilla, and it's like, wow, they really hit the nail on the head. Obviously, with the incorporation of, you know, atomic bombs and nuclear weapons, and, you know, of course, the atomic bombing of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. And, you know, it's sort of like -1 in a way, where, you know, these islanders are kind of, you know, living their lives as best as they can. And, you know, the atomic bomb testing awakens something that, you know, one old man on the island remembers from long ago. And man, just getting into this movie is really special. And the build up and, you know, the storm the night before, where it's like you don't see Godzilla yet, but you hear all the carnage going on, and it's like, is it the storm? Is it Godzilla? And then you hear his roar, and then you see one of the characters like crying because Godzilla or is it Godzilla or the storm? Obviously, we know now that it's Godzilla crushed his home and killed his family. So that speaks to you saying how depressing this film is. It's just some moments are very hard to sit through. Godzilla rampaging through Japan, the main rampage through Japan, which I think some can argue is the best rampage sequence of the franchise. There's a moment where there's this mother in an alley with her children, and she's like, "We're gonna be with Dad soon," and it's just her, and they're crying, and it's like, yeah, this is like what. I mean, I'm assuming this is what these people were thinking when impending doom is being dropped, on them, and that's why Godzilla is he plays such a important metaphor in this movie of the consequences that came with messing with nuclear weapons. And obviously that's a huge theme in this movie. And the human drama is also fantastic because we have, your simple love story, but we also have Dr. Serizawa, who is probably my favorite performance, except for -1, who is probably my favorite performance in the whole series.
Oh, okay.
And he's faced with that dilemma of he shows Emiko, who was in Godzilla vs. Destroyer, the oxygen destroyer and the its power and like what it can do, and it scares both of them, and he doesn't know what to do because he knows that it can kill Godzilla, but he doesn't want this to become a weapon of mass destruction. So it's just like that dilemma of like, what are we going to do? Like, we have to kill him, but also Dr. Yamane is like, we should keep him alive for research. Like, this is something we've never seen before. Like, how can we kill it? Like, but then he realizes that it means the end of humanity if they leave him. So
he didn't realize there was going to be 30 more sequels either. He had no idea. He was like, "You can't kill." I'm like, "God damn it, just wait. Trust me, there'll be plenty more of these, buddy." Like,
oh yeah, he does warn them at the end. This is probably not the only Godzilla out there. So I think that is a perfect setup for the franchise.
It is, and I think you hit everything on the head here. And it's like, this was also, I think, if you look at it historically, it was so shortly after 1945 when Truman dropped the atomic bomb, and it was literally less than 10 years later that this movie drops. So you're really, I mean, that's not a big turnaround time. Like 2023, when I'm sitting in the theater, yeah, there are themes but it doesn't hit the same as it does here at this time in this particular country of Japan. And of course, I always loved the drama elements of the movie. Like you said, the we'll soon be with our father, and the scene too where the little girl, her mother dies right in front of her, and they pick the little girl up, and it's okay, you're going to see your mommy soon, and the answer is that she's not. Like, the mom's not okay, and she kind of rushes the kid off. And it's like, this is probably the type of situations that they dealt with when that bomb was dropped. And I know that I'm not sure if I ever talked about you with the film. When I had Henry on, we talked about Grave of the Fireflies, which is another movie that very much shows the aftermath of what happened there. And you see all the tragic side of what this country went through. And it's really, really sad and heartbreaking. And I think Godzilla is a metaphor for that. And then on the other hand, we do have, like you said, this scientist guy who it's his dream to introduce this, whole thing, oxygen destroyer. It's his dream to use it for the good of mankind. And instead, his dream is almost stomped on in his eyes as, okay, we want you to use it as a weapon against Godzilla. We want to use it to kill Godzilla. And he doesn't want to do it because he doesn't want it to be remembered as this thing that killed Godzilla. He wants it to be something that's used for the good of humanity forever, remembered for that. And that's, again, I think that goes, it says so much. Like, to reference another Ghibli movie, Wind Rises, that guy, he designs the kamikazes. He wanted to, aviation, I'm doing good, and they used it to fly into other planes and purposely kill themselves and kill others. You can imagine to see something that you dream to make, and then it's used for that. I mean, that's just, and his performance, you're so right, it tugs on your heart. You're like, oh, like, I feel so bad for this guy, because all he wanted to do was for the good of mankind, and instead it's used to take down Gojira. And I thought that was really sad in the movie. This is definitely not a movie that I go back to much, in and of the fact, other than the classic element. It is depressing. It is really not an uplifting movie. And this is definitely not one where I'd say, get a bunch of friends and have a good time. No. Like, this is a one that I think you just have to watch under the, wow, like, this is really kind of what these people went through, and Godzilla is kind of the metaphor of what an atomic bomb would be. Of course, the effects, I still think, considering it's 70 years ago, they do look mostly good. There's a couple of shots where, okay, it doesn't look the greatest, but I don't know, man. I'm old school. Man in the rubber suit, to me, is the way to do it. Destroying all these miniatures and how they created that and made it really work. And this was there, at the same time of being kind of a, this is what the U.S. did to us with the atomic bomb. I also thought it was a love letter to King Kong. Like,
Right.
they had their monster, here's ours. And this, Godzilla has, I think, surpassed King Kong with all of its sequels and its legacy, and the whole send off and final after final after final, and we can never really put him away. This movie, it goes to show you that this was like the little train that could, and he just could never stop Godzilla, even though they do kill Godzilla at the end.
Right.
There was just no stopping or denying that this was really the next big movie monster, and that is Gojira. I don't know. I thought this was a beautiful movie. I don't know about you, though. Like, I would kind of wish this movie had been up for awards when it came out. I guess they just weren't ready for something like that at this time, but I think it's award worthy. I really do. So same with -1. I think both those movies are if I'm sitting at an academy, or if I'm sitting at, award studio, I'm like, man, this is worth something here. Like, I thought it was tremendously done.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm super proud. And I mean, just as a fan, that that -1 won best special effects.
Yeah.
Just such a feat for this franchise, and it's so late, so it's like you were saying, just undeniable. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. We do have a couple of comments. Awesome show as always. I'm still a Kong fangirl, all caps there, but you have inspired me to check out a few big lizard movies. Well, there we
Awesome.
go. We did our job. That's what that
Very
means. I
good.
think that what made the original movie so amazing is that it came out during the time when people feared the atomic bomb. Yeah, that was a real thing. I mean, it just happened, really. So it was really, I mean, I'm sure there was controversy. I mean, there had to be. Like, I couldn't imagine, I don't want to, like, I guess our equivalent to what would be 9/11. Like, imagine if they had done 9 years later a monster movie about, somebody taking out the towers. Like, could you imagine, like, the controversy that would happen if they did that? Like, it's just, I could only imagine how controversial this movie was. But man, they made it count, and they made an icon. Just like in Jaws, of how the shark is kept hidden from the audience. Yes, I think they did a really good job of that. Andrew was mentioning that with the rain and the storm, and how that tension really builds, and we're like, what is out there? And this is before we've even seen Godzilla, until we get that shot of him over the hill, and everybody, oh shit, everybody kind of jumps back, and that was great. And I kind of like the black and white for this particular movie. It adds to the down, like, there's no color here. There's no color in a world like this. This is drab and dreadful, and it really works. Thinking of the sagas or franchises in general, it's always hard to beat the OG. Yeah, and it is. I mean, listen, I won't lie. Like, if you're asking me this or -1, like, choose one to watch, I'm picking -1 probably more from an entertainment standpoint. But if you're asking me which one had the bigger impact, the value, you can't lie that it's this movie right here. I mean, it's a close one to me. There is the recency bias, I guess. There is a scene where the scientist shows his girlfriend his oxygen destroyer, and even though we don't see it, but we tell from her expression that she sees something horrifying. Yes, again, implied horror, which I think is really something that's it's strong. When it's done right, it's strong because it forces you to use your imagination, like the story you were telling with, looking over the water and imagine if something came out of there. Imagine when you tell that story, all of these visions come in my brain. It's not just the Godzilla, but that's what ended up coming out of the water when we got to the big screens. Chris C, the slasher dude's in the house. So I guess coming full circle here, the original Godzilla and this entire franchise, is it amazing to you that how big this has become? And like, I'm sort of amazed by it every day, that the fact that this is a 40 movie franchise now, like it's insane.
I do have to mention, I was, growing up, we had, YouTube had been a thing, and I would watch Cinemasker James Rolfe's videos on
Oh, dude, yes.
the Godzilla-thons just like religiously, because there was like no one making Godzilla content. So I would just rewatch Godzilla-thons all the time. And, he would mention in his videos, like, and those are just years and years and years ago that they were made, maybe like 2008 or 2009. So he was like talking about the potential of Godzilla making a comeback, because, the last movies were the 98 in America and Final Wars in 2004. And I think at the time he had just made a cameo appearance in some other movie, Godzilla, that is. And, I just never thought, as a kid at least, there would ever be another Godzilla film. And then, I don't know, 2014 came around and there was a lot of hype around it. And I think that, got the juices flowing in Toho. And I'm just super excited that we're in a time where both Japan and America can make their own Godzilla movies, and they're like their own separate entities, but it's like, I don't know, we get like a double dose. Like it's really nice. And we even have Legacy of the Monsters on Apple TV, or what is it? Like Apple Plus.
Yeah, Apple Plus, something like that.
Something like that. And I've even watched that. It's not like the best show in the world, but it's like just more the fact that we're getting kaiju content both in America and in Japan. I couldn't be more happier as a Godzilla fan. I'm super proud of where it's come to at this point, and I'm excited to see where it's going to go to.
Dude, I'm in the same boat. I agree. And I'm happy you mentioned the James Rolfe, the Cinemasker, Monster Madness, the Godzilla thoughts. Yeah, that's a big thing too for me. I always loved his videos, and that was a big one. That was always, and of course, I know I'd be remiss to not mention Big Action Bill, who I know we both adore. And I believe he's definitely, I don't know if he's a New Jersey guy. Like, he's definitely in our realm of, I don't know where he lives, but he's great. I mean, if you really want in depth on Godzilla, you look no further than Big Action Bill and his videos. Interweb Kaiju is another guy. He's actually watched a few of my shows. Really, really kind guy. He does great content. So many great Godzilla content creators out there. And I do think that they help keep the legacy alive. Like, to me, if you're a nerd for this stuff and really want to know all the behind the scenes, like, those are the videos you go to, man. And they can immerse you in this world and explain, some of the behind the scenes stories and stuff like that. And that's another thing that made me always lean towards Hedora, aka the Smog Monster, was all the behind the scenes stuff on that, where I was like, geez, like, this is insane. And it really endeared me to the movie. So I don't know, for me, for a nerd film fan like me, and I guess you, I could speak for you in that sense, is it's just so cool to see these other content creators, helping keep the legacy alive. And I agree, as a fan, after -1, I can't wait to see what Japan turns out next with this particular. I mean, I'm so excited. And then for as America, I still have not seen the Empire, or whatever the hell it's called.
The new Empire, yeah.
I saw the trailer and I just went, it was so soon after -1. I just was like, no. Like, I think I really, really feel like I will walk out of it being like, Yeah, like that was a movie. Like I don't think I really have to fairly watch it. Like maybe I'll watch Godzilla's Revenge and then watch Empire. Maybe that'll help it. I don't know. But yeah, no, dude, this has been so much fun having you on here tonight. Yeah, no, I would love to have you back on in the future, even if you want to do one of these on like wrestling someday or other film series. Like I know you're a big film buff with anything. So yeah, maybe one day down the road we'd love to have you back on. But I appreciate that you made the time tonight. Thank you, man.
Oh, thank you, Grande, dude. This has been such a blast, and I'm always down to talk Godzilla, and I would be so honored to come back on. So whenever you're ready, man, just shoot me a text, and I'll be there.
Absolutely, man, dude. Yeah, 1,000,001 great combos with you, and this was no exception. We got Missy in the chat saying only. Next week on Grande's Graveyard, we'll take a look at Blood Drive, the very, very short, very under talked about exploitation horror series, and I'm very excited about that as we kick off the August editions of the Graveyard. Very excited. Andrew is awesome. I believe you do have a YouTube channel. I don't know if you upload anything to it, but it's like Misfit #1, right? A little bit.
Yeah. It was. I think I've changed it now, but it's now Gone Troppo, which is TROPPO, and you'll find a lot of concert videos on there now. But yeah, there's some other content on there.
There you go. Okay, so yeah, subscribe to Gone Troppo. Andrew is great people, and of course, would be remiss to not give the man of the hour, the man with the power, too sweet to be sour, the king of the monsters, Gojira. Long live the king of the monsters. Everybody, thank you so much for tuning in. Count me in for a wrestling episode. Okay, yeah, hey, maybe we'll do a wrestling episode, a round table. Maybe we'll do something like that. Yeah, too sweet. But everybody, thank you so much for watching. Have a safe, happy, healthy weekend, and we will catch you next time only on the Graveyard. Too sweet, peace. We'll catch you next time. Good night, everybody.
Thank you all.